Now for our lead story tonight. He landed in India last Saturday, and like many other heads of state, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was not received at the airport by his Indian counterpart. He's been traversing the length and breadth of the country with his beautiful family in tow. Today he finally met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and was given a piece of advice. Our next report details the highlights.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a statement after holding talks with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And one statement is all it took to sum up Trudeau's India tour, officially a state visit.
हम अपने सुरक्षा सहयोग को सुदृढ़ करने पर सहमत हुए हैं। आतंकवाद और उग्रवाद भारत और कनाडा जैसे लोकतांत्रिक बहुलवादी समाजों के लिए खतरा है। इन ताकतों का मुकाबला करने के लिए हमारा साथ आना महत्वपूर्ण है।
The meeting came a day after Canadian delegation was embarrassed by the presence of a Khalistani among them. But one-off incidents do not derail bilateral relationships. So the Modi-Trudeau meet lasted about 2 hours, enough to review the entire gamut of bilateral partnership. The Indians and Canadians signed 6 MOUs, and the Indian Prime Minister emphasized that Canada can play a significant role in India's energy requirements.
कनाडा एनर्जी सुपर पावर है और हमारी बढ़ती ऊर्जा जरूरतों को पूरा कर सकता है। आज हमने अपने एनर्जी डायलॉग का विस्तार करने और हमारी ऊर्जा साझेदारी के भविष्य की रूपरेखा तैयार करने का निर्णय किया है।
Strategic discussions were also held. India and Canada emphasizing on democracy and the need to combat terror.
अफगानिस्तान की स्थिति पर विस्तार से चर्चा हुई। अफगानिस्तान की सरकार और वहां की जनता को सीमा पार आतंकवाद की चुनौतियों से निपटने और एक शांतिपूर्ण, सुरक्षित, समृद्ध और लोकतांत्रिक अफगानिस्तान के निर्माण में उनके प्रयासों में सहयोग करने की आवश्यकता स्पष्ट है।
Investment, trade and more importantly, people-to-people contact were the other key points of discussion.
We discussed deepening and strengthening people-to-people ties. Canada is home to more than 1.3 million people of Indian descent. India and Canada are united not only by their common ambition to create more opportunities for people to get ahead, but by a shared set of values. Values like respect for the democratic tradition, pluralism, and diversity.
Justin Trudeau also met the Indian Foreign Minister on the last leg of his tour. Earlier in the day, he was given a red carpet welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. All the criticism aside, the Prime Minister of Canada has probably done more than any ambassador could in promoting India as a tourist destination, even as many Indians strive to settle in Canada given the hurdles in acquiring a green card. Bureau Report, WION.
So what do India-Canada relations look like? Let's begin with trade. It's one of the most important pillars of foreign affairs, and let's understand the trade ties between these two countries. Since India's independence, both India and Canada have enjoyed a close relationship economically, and this is despite Canada being a NATO member while India chose non-alignment. Canada remained an important partner during the 50s and the 60s. It continued to extend economic assistance to India in 1951 through the Canadian International Development Agency, and India was at one time the largest recipient of aid from Canada. But ties between the two nations witnessed turbulence when India's nuclear test in 1974 annoyed Canada. India's historic 1991 reforms, though, turned the bitterness into bonhomie when it opened its economy to the world, and Canada realized that it should expand its economic presence in India rather than America or other South Asian countries. And since then, there's been no looking back, but experts believe that both countries have not achieved their true potential. In 2016, two-way merchandise trade between Canada and India totaled $8 billion. India exports gems, jewelry, pharmaceuticals, textiles, organic chemicals, etc. to Canada and imports pulses, potash, iron scrap, copper, minerals, industrial chemicals, you name it, all of that coming from Canada to India. Justin Trudeau's Bhangra moves and sartorial choices reflect upon the strong influence that Indian culture has in Canada. Let's understand how the two countries are tied culturally. Canada is home to a large Indian diaspora. Approximately 3.6% of Canada's population is of Indian origin. Canada is the second most popular destination for Indian students going abroad for higher education, with 124,000 Indians holding valid Canadian study permits. These are the numbers as of 2017. Canadian universities and colleges are also very active in India, and there are currently more than 400 agreements between institutions on both sides in both the countries. India is Canada's 10th largest source of tourists and international visitors, with 224,000 visits made from India to Canada in 2016. The two democracies enjoy a close relationship that is based on pluralism and diversity, as the Prime Minister of Canada also put it. History plays a big role in defining diplomatic ties, so it becomes imperative to go back in time to understand how India and Canada took baby steps to boost their ties and engage with each other to shape their future. Both countries had a strong connection between 1940 and 1960. This was because of personal ties that had developed between Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and two Canadian leaders who served as Prime Minister during those years, Louis Saint-Laurent and Lester Pearson. Both these, in fact, during this period, Canada's aid program to India that began in 1951 grew substantially under the Colombo Plan. But two major incidents in the 1970s and 80s fractured ties between these two countries. The first one was India's nuclear test in Pokhran in 1974. It upset Canada so much that the government severed bilateral nuclear cooperation with India in 1976, alleging that India had violated the terms of agreement under which Canada had supplied a nuclear reactor in 1956. The second incident that strained ties between India and Canada was the horrific bombing of Air India Flight 182 that left 392 people dead, including a vast majority of Canadians. The terrorist attack is believed to have been spearheaded by pro-Khalistan Sikhs. A news report indicating that the government of India could hold a new round of fighter aircraft competitions has stirred incredulity and shock. The last time such a competition was held, called the Medium Multi-Role Combat Aircraft, or MMRCA, it was scrapped over cost and other issues. Just what is going on? Take a look at this report.
The Sukhoi 30 MKI is India's frontline fighter aircraft. It's a heavy twin-engine multi-role fighter with a range of 3,000 kilometers that can be extended with aerial refueling. The Indian Air Force is building up a fleet of 272 of these fighters in 15 squadrons. Backing up the Sukhois will be 2 squadrons of 36 Rafale fighters, also twin-engined but in the medium-weight category, that will start arriving from France next year. The Air Force would like more of them, but cost is a major issue. Another critical deficiency is in the single-engine category. 11 squadrons of MiG-21 and MiG-27 fighters, nearly 200 aircraft will be phased out by 2022. Replacing them will be only 103 Tejas light combat aircraft. Hindustan Aeronautics is building too few Tejas and too slowly to bridge this gap. There was a plan to buy and build 114 single-engine fighters with a foreign collaborator. The F-16 and Gripen E were in the running, but this was scrapped last year, apparently because the government wanted to focus on the Tejas upgrade and production, which left little money for anything else. Now, a media report quoting government sources says the MMRCA program could be revived with another competition involving both twin and single-engine fighters. The report does not make clear why the government would want to revive the MMRCA plan. It was scrapped over cost and other issues that have not changed substantially. Also, the mixing of single and twin-engine fighters in one competition made it unclear what the Air Force wanted. A new tender will take at least 6 months to finalize. By the time aircraft makers respond and trials are held, it could be at least 2 to 3 years. Overall, a delay of 5 years at a time when the Air Force will be down to just 33 squadrons against a required 42 to cater for a two-front war. Or is this a device to bring in fighters like the single-engine F-35 or twin-engine MiG-35 that were not there the last time? As always, when it comes to defense, India awaits clarity. Bureau Report, WION.
Northeastern state of Nagaland is in the news for all that goes with assembly elections in India. But there is more to Nagaland than just ethnicity and religion. The capital of that state is significant for more reasons than one. It was here that one of the most intense battles during the Second World War was fought. More than 1,400 Allied soldiers lost their lives. It was also at the gates of Kohima that the advancing Japanese army was halted. WION's Kartikeya Sharma reports.
This is Kohima's war cemetery. The Japanese invasion of India in 1944 was actually halted here. So the cemetery is a tribute, a way of preserving the memories of the British, Indian, Australian and soldiers of various nationalities who fought the Battle of Kohima. The Battle of Kohima is supposed to be one of the bloodiest battles ever fought. And the importance in context of the Indian history is that this is the place where Japanese were halted. Japan by the time had overrun Burma, and they had actually reached this hill. You know, at that point of time, this used to be the office of the Deputy Commissioner, and hand-to-hand combat took place here. And not only hand-to-hand combat took place here, Japanese were able to lay a siege, and that siege lasted for 13 days. Now this is Kohima town. As you can see, the town has become bigger. This is whole of Kohima town. So at this spot, not only the hand-to-hand combat took place, but for 13 days, Indian soldiers, British soldiers and other soldiers, they had to stay put here. The supply lines were cut. Another battle was taking place side by side on the next ridge. So there was no connection between Dimapur and Kohima, and only air supplies. The army had to depend on air supplies. And there are certain markers here which they have been able to preserve. For example, this used to be a cherry tree which was used as a place by snipers to hide an attack. So this tree is a shoot of that original cherry tree, and this is the memorial. And the importance of this memorial is to remind that the Japanese had actually come to this point, because the border, if you say where is the border is another 200 kilometers from Kohima. We are 200 kilometers in Nagaland from our international border. So the Japanese had come here. So this is a memorial for them. It's a cemetery to remember what had happened there. So you had soldiers of Bengal sappers, Scottish regiment, soldiers from Punjab, you have Australian Air Force, and you had soldiers from other regiments of the at that point in time colonial India were there. You had Assam Rifles Regiment, and this is the plaque which has been put here, and which just goes on to say, here around the tennis court of the Deputy Commissioner lie men who fought in the Battle of Kohima, in which they and their comrades finally halted the invasion of India by the forces of Japan in April 1944. So you know, this is an important history of Nagaland. Nagaland is known for, as of now, its beauty, the problem of corruption, you know, the whole issue of church, elections right now. But this reflects another history of Kohima, and this history is about World War and the fact that the Japanese had come so close to the Indian mainland. Because if they would have won Kohima, they would have been in Assam by May 1944. With camera person Suraj, Kartikeya Sharma from Kohima for WION.